Have you noticed how we stand at the apex of human achievement telescopes that peer into galaxies billions of years old? Particle accelerators that isolate the building blocks of matter yet? Somehow we struggle to comprehend the quiet tragedy of loneliness, the heartbreak of isolation? It's a paradox of our age. We have harnessed the power of the cosmos, even split atoms, but the connection between our hearts and one another feels tenuous, fragile, as if suspended too high, too fast. This is the opening question of our moment. What shifts are underwaysalent, unseen, and why do so few feel them? In the grand cosmic tapestry, everything emerges from cycles of creation and dissolution. Stars are born in nebulae, burn bright, and eventually collapse into black holes or supernovae, only to seed new generations of star systems. We are made of that same ancient stardust, and yet our collective consciousness behaves more like a seed buried in soil than a star on fire rooting slowly, unseen, unheard, yet waiting. Consider, our technology races ahead with blinding speed, yet our inner development, the awakening of empathy, of planetary belonging, creeps forward in subterranean silence. Could it be that we are mistaking outer acceleration for inner transformation? Perhaps the real revolution is occurring below the noise, within the subtle frequencies of awareness. What if your sense of meaning, your capacity for compassion, your relationship with the biosphere is not just personal, it's planetary, cosmic? Every time we record a distant quasar or decode a genome, we edge closer to understanding ourselves. But do we equate that with understanding our place within the living planet? To feel the shift, one need only observe 3 emerging signs. First, system sensitivity awareness of global feedback loops from climate shock to data overload. Our recognition that societies are not insulated from nature's circuits. Second, cosmic empathy, the moment you realize that every photon that reaches your eye may have traveled for millennia, and that the forest or the ocean is not just scenery, but a living participant in your story. Third, network consciousness, the leap from physical to energetic community, where meditation groups, citizen science, and compassionate action meet at the intersection of heart and intellect, uniting us across geography and ideology. These are not mystical claims. They are invitations to inquiry. After all, the language of science is inquiry, not dogma. When you sense the planet's heartbeat through rising seas or dying coral, through global empathy or shared grief, you are observing resonance. Resonance is physics. It's how 2 pendulums in proximity sway in synchronization. What if humanity and Earth are 2 pendulums moving into harmonic alignment, and the apparent chaos we witness is merely their imperfect tuning? From here, the path leads toward personal responsibility. Understanding that your feelings, your actions, your choices are not isolated, they echo within Earth systems. When you cultivate intentional kindness, reduce your carbon footprint, support regenerative agriculture, you aren't just being woke, you are contributing to planetary resonance. When enough pendulums align, a new frequency emerges zone of balance, compassion, and cosmic awareness. So the question today is not, will the shift happen, but rather, will you perceive it? Because in perceiving it, you become its agent. And so begins our shared Journey 1, rooted in scientific curiosity, informed by cosmic perspective, and propelled by the urgent need for meaningful action. This is no New Age fantasy. This is the sober call of our scientific heritage, infused with wonder, grounded in responsibility. In the same breath, the 4th sign emerges. Systems of regeneration, when you see the world pivot from extraction to restoration, from depletion to reciprocity. It shows up in the rewilding of forests, the resurgence of endangered species, communities shifting from pollution to permaculture, from exploitation to stewardship. These are not isolated ecological experiments. They're coordinates on a global map of collective awakening evidence that the dynamic between humanity and Earth is evolving from adversarial to symbiotic. Here, scientific method meets spiritual impulse. We learn from biology that diversity builds resilience, that nutrient cycles sustain both soil and soul. And we activate that understanding with intent, planting trees, reviving wetlands, healing the microbiome of our planet, and in doing so, healing ourselves. The fifth sign is the democratization of knowledge, the moment when science no longer dwells behind ivory towers, but becomes a shared currency of curiosity, a civic act. From open-source satellite data tracking climate change to crowdsourced health monitoring apps to citizen projects cataloging biodiversity in backyard gardens, knowledge ceases to be a privilege and becomes a bridge. This shift challenges entrenched hierarchies in politics, education, innovation. It rewrites the social contract of knowledge sharing. With every shared data set, every communal experiment, with every question crowd-raised and crowd-tested, we're saying we are not passive consumers, we are co-creators of reality. This is the scientific ethos in democratic form, and it carries within it the gravitational pull of transformation. Then there is the sixth hand, perhaps most intimate design, an ethical recalibration, the internal alignment of values from egoistic gain to collective ascent. You notice it in everyday decisions. Choosing sustainably sourced food over convenience, repurposing instead of discarding, opting for communities built around mutual aid rather than consumer convenience. But the deeper shift isn't about individual sacrifice, it's about reorienting purpose. We're no longer asking, what can I take, but what can I give? We're no longer judging success by accumulation alone, but by impact and meaning. And inside this recalibration lies a truth as old as gravity. Every action has a ripple. Act with integrity, you tip toward balance. Act with disregard, you feed entropy. So now we've arrived at the six signs: system sensitivity, cosmic empathy, network consciousness, regenerative systems, shared knowledge, and ethical recalibration. They form a constellation, each point shining through a different lens, yet all converging on the same phenomenon. We are awakening to the fact that we are not separate from the planet, the cosmos, or each other. We are interwoven strands in a living, dynamic web. But noticing isn't enough. Recognition must graduate into responsibility. Science taught us that knowledge without application is mere data. Wonder without action is a nice idea rather than a destiny. So the next question is, how do we trace a new trajectory with the tools of awareness? First, by expanding our intentionality. Each of your choices becomes a gravitational field, favoring renewable energy, supporting science education, consuming media that amplifies communal voices. Each choice nudges humanity's center of mass toward health and coherence. Second, by joining networks that amplify resonance collaborative platforms, solving real problems in sustainability, mental health, biodiversity, equality. Partnering strengthens both infrastructure and hope, because hope is not a solitary emotion, it's a signal that follows action. Third, by embodying participation in the cosmic experiment, staying curious, not cynical, staying humble, not passive, staying accountable, not indifferent. When you look up at the night sky and sense the spiral galaxy that birthed us, why assume you're there merely as observer? You're also creator. Gravity binds atoms, stars, life, and consciousness into one coherent sagawai. Not steward your chapter with as much care as the cosmos. In this most pivotal moment, your mind is the microscope and your heart is the telescope. Pause, exhale, and feel the quiet shift all around you. Subatomic particles dancing in your skin, magnetic fields pulsing in Earth's core, collective intention shaping hydrocycles and social justice. All of it is interlocked. This is not mysticism, it's systems theory. It's network science. It's quantum entanglement in our daily lives. The shift has begun. It started with particles and ideas, with drops of empathy and decibels of dissent. It continues in each moment you choose connection over comparison, purpose over profit, harmony over hype. It asks nothing less than your conscious alignment. In the grand ledger of cosmic time, our moment is minuscule. But within that moment, we can choose to tip the scales, to transmit resonance that echoes for epochs. We can anchor the six signs into lived reality, not as abstract talking points, but as practical invitations to evolve. So here's the final question, not for me, but for you. Will you stay asleep in the old narrative, or will you wake up and choose to align your life with this new frequency? Will you become a sign, yourself part of the constellation, steering humanity toward coherence, not collapse? The shift has started. Humanity, you just need to remember your role. When we sense the planet's becoming more sensitive to our collective presence, it's because feedback loops from collapsing rainforests to thawing permafrost air sending us memos in real time. It's not alarmism, it's resonance. In physics, resonance describes how oscillations build when frequencies match. In our case, the frequency to which Earth responds is compassion, care, and regenerative action. So when communities across continents restore degraded lands, reduce plastics, or power their homes with solar, they aren't just ticking boxes, they're tuning the frequency. They're becoming active participants in shaping this planetary symphony. Move closer, and you see cosmic empathy in every mindful breath taken beside an ancient tree or beneath a canopy of stars. Consider the numbers. Each photon illuminating your eyelids spent eons in interstellar darkness traversing unimaginable distances just to reach you. That alone is a humbling testament to our place in the cosmos, a reminder that caring for Earth is a cosmic obligation. To sense your life as stardust, speaking back to galaxies, is to step into empathy not only toward humanity, but toward ecosystems, species, even the silent forests that share our chemistry and history. Networked consciousness takes form in grassroots science that transcends race, class, and geography. When an amateur astronomer in Kenya alerts a professional observatory of a new transient, or when a school child in Brazil logs termite activity that feeds into climate models, the boundary between expert and observer dissolves. What remains is collective intelligence, and with it, collective responsibility. You don't have to publish in a peer-reviewed journal to be part of this. You only need curiosity honed into kind action. Regeneration isn't just planting trees, it's celebrating symbiosis. It's knowing that fungi build forests underground, that wetlands purify water, that coral reefs buffer storms. It's trusting that if we restore the mechanisms of resilience, resilience will restore us. It's using science to guide you as not to dominate, but to partner with life's own playbook, which is diversity, cycles, interdependence. Shared knowledge bridges inner and outer worlds. We map genomes, and we map grief. We sequence DNA, and we sequence biases. We crack quantum encryption, and we ask how to encrypt trust among humans. It's no longer enough to know ourselves only as consumers or data points. We need to know our deeper nature, our flaws, our dreams, our impact. Finally, ethical recalibration is the quiet revolution of everyday integrity. Choosing to buy fair trade beans, to mend clothes rather than discard them, to speak truth kindly, to vote with awareness of long-term consequences. It's the moment our values align with our habits, where moral philosophy converges with planetary science. And yes, it often feels small, but in systems theory, small inputs at strategic leverage points can shift entire equilibria. Pull these threads together, and what you see is this. The shift isn't happening somewhere else. It's happening right here, in you, in me, in all of us making choices every day. It's the scientist planting a native tree on their lunch break. It's the engineer designing affordable solar for rural villages. It's the artist crafting stories that weave empathy between strangers. It's humanity remembering it is both observer and actor in a cosmic theater sapient enough to choose not just what can be done, but what should be done. The real test now: translate insight into agency. Use your skills, your stories, your networks, your curiosity as tools of stewardship. Volunteer time, yes, but also contribute mind. Join civic science groups, write letters. Use your consumer power to support regeneration. Teach a child to wonder at the night sky and teach them that with wonder comes responsibility. And if you ever doubt your power to influence planetary scale patterns, remember this: a single photon can trigger chain reaction in a detector. A whisper can spark a revolution. A modest seed can grow into a forest. In this moment, every act of integrity floods Earth's systems with hope. Every act of empathy sends shockwaves across networks. every shared insight becomes a building block for the new narrative. So I invite you again, live the 6 signs, notice them in the world, amplify them in your life, become each sign embodied. In time, the constellation of 6 will grow, spreading coherence, amplifying resonance, shifting momentum. This is no utopian fantasy. It's applied science. It's systems intelligence. It's both poetry and process. Above all, it's evidence-based hope. Because hope grounded in data, tethered to action, intertwined with accountability, this kind of hope can alter outcomes. This kind of hope becomes reality. And the truth is, this is only the beginning. Our species has passed tipping points before, from hunter-gatherer to agriculture, agriculture to industry, and each transition brought progress but also peril. Now we stand at the next threshold. From industrial consumerism to regenerative participation, from human exceptionalism to cosmic coherence. What we choose today will echo for millennia. So ask yourself, when history looks back, will it credit you as part of the chorus that raised the frequency? Will it say you stood silent in the old order, or that you raised your voice for the earth, for science, for love, for accountability? If you hear resonance, if your heart skips in rhythm with forest, glacier, star, ecosystem, then carry that resonance forward. Tune your life so that every beat aligns with planetary well-being, because this shift has started and it travels on the notes we play together. It rides on the integrity we choose now. And its finale depends on whether we, the audience turned participants, step onto the stage. I believe we will. And as we do, we won't just witness the next chapter. We will be its authors, its architects, its living legacy. When I visited a coastal village in Indonesia, I witnessed something profound. Locals rebuilding oyster reefs along their shoreline, not because a distant government instructed them, but because they understood instinctively and empirically that these reefs buffer storms, filter water, and support fish populations. They weren't activists in protest marches, they were ecosystem engineers. They were reading the natural systems and responding with intelligent design. That's regeneration in action, one reef at a time. Later, I joined a citizen science campaign in the Australian outback, where thousands of volunteers used smartphones to record bird calls. The collective data painted a map of avian biodiversity shift signals of climate change species migrations that professional scientists corroborated. There was no ivory tower in sight, just people with curiosity, notebooks, and compassion. That is networked consciousness. Every child, birdwatcher, farmer, and scientist in concert, bearing witness and bearing care. Back in the US, a rural community rallied around a closed factory. Workers converted it into a green energy hub powered by wind turbines and community-owned solar gardens. They weren't just responding to an economic collapse, they were rotating the axis of their town's future. This speaks to ethical recalibration, measuring progress not by jobs lost, but by energy resilience gained, by electrons moving in service to community rather than corporations. In these stories, you see science and ethics entwined. The oyster reef's buffering capacity is a lesson in ecosystem functions. The bird survey teaches migration phenology and biodiversity monitoring. The solar community informs decentralization and collective ownership. And each is an invitation. How can your skills, wherever you are, become part of this planetary symphony? Perhaps tomorrow, you help plant a native tree in your city, or contribute to a global open data project on air quality. Maybe you mentor a student in critical thinking, or you simply choose to repair your phone instead of buying new. These are not small choices. They are micro commitments to the 6 signs we've defined: sensitivity, empathy, knowledge, regeneration, community, values. Consider the scientific concept of positive feedback loops. In climate science, melting ice reduces albedo, accelerating further melting unchecked. It becomes runaway. But positive loops can also build resilience. More trees sequester more carbon, more data informs better policy, more communities regenerate soil, more reflection recalibrates values. In systems theory, it's leverage. The smallest change in the right place yields exponential outcomes. That's where your intention becomes potent. I often return to the night sky to reflect. Standing under the Milky Way, I feel both infinitesimal and inseparable from the spiral arms, from the photons that raced here, from the human lineage that cracked DNA's code. In that context, individual ego diminishes, but collective purpose crystallizes. If we exist in a cosmos capable of life, capable of consciousness, then what's our obligation? To collapse back into short-term thinking? Or to lift our gaze and collaborate responsibly with both data and devotion? The shift we speak of isn't about utopia, it's about coherence. Coherence means aligning what we know with what we do, what we feel with how we act, what we dream with, where we direct our energy. It means the engineer, the philosopher, and the farmer all tuning in to the same frequency, not losing nuance, but finding harmony. Imagine schools where children learn ecosystem dynamics alongside ethics, where programming includes data for good, where history includes both human triumphs and ecological costs. Imagine cities designed not just for convenience, but for connectivity. Bike lanes, urban forests, public science centers, community gardens all feeding into one another. These are not science fiction ideas, but prototypes already underway, from the Netherlands' floating cities to Singapore's vertical gardens to California's citizen weather networks. When systems become sensitive, they become responsive. When empathy turns cosmic, it becomes regenerative care. When knowledge is shared, it becomes collective intelligence. When values recalibrate, they become culture. And when regeneration is lived, it becomes the foundation not of utopia, but of a stable, flourishing civilization. So let me pause here not to conclude, but to challenge, carry this narrative forward. Continue it in your actions, your conversations, your institutions. When a policy decision comes, ask, does it tune the frequency or distort it? When a technology arises, ask, does it foster connection or fragmentation? When a product is marketed, ask, does it amplify resilience or reinforce extraction? Because in every frame of this unfolding story, you are already in it. The shift has started even in the very act of questioning. Your attention, your empathy, your care, they aren't accessories to the human journey, they are its motor. If you're still listening, still holding this frequency in your awareness, then something has already shifted within you. Perhaps it's subtle, like the faint gravitational tug between two orbiting moons, imperceptible yet persistent. Perhaps it's Laudera resonant thrum deep within, urging you to live more truthfully, more courageously. Either way, you've crossed a threshold, the point where observation begins to transform into participation. Every civilization reaches inflection points, moments when the collective trajectory bends, not just by external forces, but by internal decisions. Our ancestors faced theirs with fire and wheel, with compass and code. Now, we face our snot with a singular invention, but with a networked awakening. An opportunity to design systems aligned with both ecological constraints and ethical expansiveness. To redefine progress, not as GDP or market value, but as the flourishing of all life human and more than human. But that begins in the mirror, in your values, your habits, your conversations, the way you walk through the world. Because this isn't a revolution led by presidents or billionaires, it's a shift sustained by ordinary people choosing coherence over chaos, choosing unity over fear. That's the secret of transformation. It never starts with permission from the top. It begins in quiet acts, a gesture of care, a moment of deep listening, a willingness to stay awake when sleep would be easier. In systems science, they call it phase transition. When enough variables in a system change, the whole system leaps to a new state. Water to steam, caterpillar to butterfly, isolation to interconnectedness. Yes, you are a variable. You can shift the equation. And when enough of us do, we generate a tipping point toward balance, beauty, and belonging. This is the legacy we can choose. Not one of extraction, but restoration. Not conquest, but compassion. Not dominance, but dance a dance. With the earth, with the cosmos, with each other. It's not about being perfect, it's about being present, being willing, being attuned. Because this shift hit doesn't announce itself with trumpets or lightning bolts. It whispers in compost piles, in climate strikes, in bedtime stories rewritten for justice. in science teachers who link entropy to empathy, in solar panels on rooftops and wetlands revived by volunteers. It lives in choices that feel small but scale across time and space. So I ask you now, what will you donut someday but now? What frequency will you embody? What kind of ancestor will you become? Will you be a footnote in the age of collapse or a spark in the story of emergence? The universe has waited over 13 billion years for a species to ask these questions with sincerity. And know where you are. Here we are, alive in the turning, awake in the shift, not just witnesses, not just dreamers, but agents of this improbable, beautiful cosmic becoming. The shift has started, and you, perhaps without knowing, have already answered the call.